The ancient clan totems had been inherited to exorcise ghosts. Tradition required 12 people to dance in formation to stabilize a barrier against evil. It was necessary to know exactly what the barrier was meant to block. That which went against the nature of the world was called a wild spirit, while that which possessed spiritual properties was treated as an essence of the world. When a soul clings to the material world, it is treated merely as a wandering ghost. But when it becomes an anomaly among things, it transforms into a monstrosity. Titled as the Crouching Tiger, the chief of the capital's police had his rank established by Emperor Wu of Han. His duty was to investigate matters related to witchcraft and curses, as well as eliminate strange forces and restless spirits. In the divine land of Shinju, matters involving ghosts and evil beings were gradually eradicated. However, several hundred years ago, a sacred entity covered 80% of the blue planet, with the darkness belonging to its body. Since then, spiritual energy reappeared, bringing back specters and ghosts. Sitting on the sofa in her house, a young woman trembled with fear in the dark. She tried to contact the police, pleading over the phone. "Save me. I beg you to save me. I'm very scared. You need to save me." On the other end of the line, the police officer asked her to calm down. "Please, calm down. What did you encounter? Are they thieves or some other kind of threat?" The girl quickly described what was happening. No, it's nothing like that. Officer, I found something filthy. It's a pair of red embroidered shoes. They are the 3-inch golden lotus type from ancient times. The girl stuttered as she spoke, even while gathering all of her courage. "Some time ago, I took a trip to the Jiangnan region and saw those shoes in a small shop. But ever since I bought them, strange events have been happening one after another. Every day I keep having the same nightmare repeatedly. I dream of a woman. No, the ghost of a woman, with long black hair and a red dress, wearing those red embroidered shoes, staring at me without saying a word. Each time the young woman dreamed, the distance between her and the ghost grew smaller and smaller, until a few days ago she appeared right in front of her face. Desperate just from remembering it, the young woman cried out in tears. Can you imagine what I've been through these past few days? I'm going insane. And besides that, I already burned those red embroidered shoes, but they stubbornly keep following me and won't leave me alone. Just a moment ago, they appeared again at the head of my bed. Earlier, she had tried to calm herself down, but upon seeing the small shoes reappear on top of the bookshelf, the young woman lost control. She desperately begged the officer to come to her house. Asking her to stay calm, the police officer asked where she was, but before the young woman could answer him, the call disconnected. The young woman's eyes widened when she heard an evil voice amid the static interference. "So this is where you are?" The young woman opened the wardrobe, trying to escape as fast as she could while screaming, "Someone save me!" However, before she could leave the bedroom, the door slammed shut. When she looked back, she saw a woman sitting on the sofa, a ghost. Her eyes were rolled back, her face stained and rotten. As for her head, it was not where it should have been. It rested upon her lap, far from her neck. Outside the window, the red moon marked a date, the 18th day of the first month. The bride, in her red dress, engraved the deepest resentment into every inch of her body. The next day, several police cars stopped in front of an apartment complex. A young man named Wei Yuan was sweeping the front of his house and found the commotion strange. Wei Yuan's old grandfather had always dreamed that the small house would be bought and demolished for reconstruction. He had even thought about how he would spend the money, but unfortunately, that offer never came. Being in the city for the first time in search of work, Wei Yuan at least had a place to stay. Seeing the movement of ambulances and police officers carrying a body bag, the young man imagined that something serious had happened. Suddenly, Wei Yuan heard a noise inside the house and ran over, thinking that someone had broken in to rob him. In the end, he realized he had only been imagining things. Being extremely poor, no one would bother paying attention to him. However, something was strange. The only thing that could possibly attract attention, a plaque with a golden tiger that he had left lying down, was now standing upright. He picked up the plaque and discovered a small phrase that had not been there before. Chief of Police of the Great Han Distance. Upon pronouncing those words, the tiger emerged from the small plaque, manifesting itself as a great ghost. Even frightened, the protagonist tried to remain calm. That could be a divine artifact left behind by his grandfather. Looking at the plaque once more, the protagonist noticed that the surname Wei had been carved into part of it, as if it had been passed down through generations by his ancestors. The young man lifted the plaque excitedly, imagining that his ancestors had once been rich. Amid his excitement, Wei Yuan cut himself on the iron plaque. He placed it on top of a cloth where his blood also dripped. The cloth rose before Wei Yuan, and the tiger he had seen earlier drew the image of small red shoes. By this, I come to announce that there is a disturbance, a calamity of witchcraft and curses, the evil and falsehood that contaminate the divine land. By order of the chief of the capital's police, anyone who invades our divine land, whether it be a strange force or a restless spirit, shall be arrested and executed. Confused, Wei Wen questioned what that warning was and what those shoes were. Recovering immediately, he declared with a determined look, "As long as there is an anomaly, there is certainly evil involved. And if we do not understand something, we simply ask the search engines." The protagonist went straight to the computer. With the message in hand, he searched through several forums, but the only thing he found were ghost stories. There were no shoes matching the description being sold in online stores. Wei Yuan remembered that the plaque had reacted at the exact moment the police removed the deceased's body from the apartment complex. While wondering if the two events were connected, the protagonist saw a mist entering his house. Walking toward the mist, he saw a red light and wondered if it could be another police car on the street. After getting lost in the mist, the protagonist found himself in an unfamiliar place. It looked like an ancient temple, somewhere he had never seen before. Looking around, he saw the light again. It came from something upon an altar before a dried tree. As he approached, he discovered that the altar was actually a well, and that the light emanated from a woman wearing a traditional red wedding dress. Behind the veil, the woman revealed parts of her corpse-like face. With a smile, she spoke to Wei Yuan. "Young master, you came to see me." The bride climbed out of the well, rotating her head as she spoke. "You made me wait until my heart almost broke." Clinging to the first man she saw, the ghost bride flew toward Wei Yuan. Behind Wei Yuan, the great tiger appeared. Its fierce roar struck out, shattering the illusion created by the ghost bride and bringing the young man back to the real world. When he picked up his cell phone, he discovered that it was the yin hour. It was said that between 3 and 5 in the morning, the yin energy accumulated in the atmosphere reached its peak. Wei Yuan's head ached because of the nightmare. While holding his cell phone, he received an email. Unexpectedly, it was a message scheduling a job interview, asking him to go to the Folklore Museum the following day. The pay would not be bad. Since he would not need to spend money on food or housing, Wei Yuan was inclined to accept. The next day, he arrived at the Folklore Museum. When he met the museum's owner, Wei Yuan was completely confused. The slender bald man smoked a long pipe while examining some documents. His eyes were closed, as though he were sleeping. The man awoke when called by Wei Yuan and went straight to the point. "Young man, are you afraid of ghosts?" His serious expression showed that he was not joking. Confused, Wei Yuan questioned what he was talking about. "We are all materialists. There are no ghosts in this world." The protagonist did not understand why the owner of the museum was so eccentric. He had not expected the place to be so strange. While thinking, Wei Yuan held the ancestral police plaque behind his back, hoping that the artifact would bring him luck. The museum owner observed the young man. In his eyes, Wei Yuan possessed strong yang energy, which made him believe that nothing would happen to him. The man sighed. Since it had been the young man who submitted the resume, he could not be blamed if something happened after hiring him. Thus, he opened the museum's doors and told Wei Yuan to follow him. The museum corridor contained several ancient lanterns. Even though it had been so hot before entering the museum, Wei Yuan felt an icy chill as soon as he crossed the entrance. Throughout the museum, there were several dolls that looked truly sinister. Wei Yuan followed the museum owner, commenting that the place was not small at all. While walking through the museum, Wei Yuan saw an opened bottle of guarana. No one had drunk from it, and the carbonation had gone to waste. The museum owner explained that it was a product of his son's life during working hours. Pointing toward the end of the corridor, he informed him that the bedroom, living room, and bathroom were located there. Wei Yuan asked if he could take a look, but the man curiously looked away. Wei Yuan thought he was feeling unwell, yet the man quickly changed his attitude, stating that, since that would be the place where Wei Yuan would live, he could go ahead while he waited there. The protagonist frowned, knowing that something was wrong. The job offer had been sent in the middle of the night, which was already reason enough for suspicion. Having the tiger plaque with him, he gained confidence and decided to move forward. While waiting, the museum owner sighed inwardly. "Oh, Yang, my deceased son, this is the 4th person I've hired within half a month. If he runs away in fear like the previous 3, then perhaps the heavens have truly decreed that your museum must close. After all, it wasn't only the previous 3 hires who saw it. Even I saw last night what is in there." The previous day, the old man had heard knocking sounds at the door in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. Blood had dripped down the walls even though nothing had happened there. While the old man thought about this, he was startled when he saw the young man return with the blanket over his head. Frightened, he jumped back. "What are you doing?" Wei Yuan apologized to the man, stating that since it was cold and he had found the blanket, he ended up wrapping himself in it. Composing himself, the man merely commented that he was very audacious. At least internally, he was satisfied that the young man had not run away. He then introduced the job. You will not need to do much in the future. Simply keeping this museum open is enough. I will pay your water and electricity bills, as well as 800 a month for food. Wei Yuan promptly signed the contract. Having walked all around the place without the tiger plaque reacting, the protagonist thought everything would be fine. Thus, the man left first, leaving Wei Yuan alone. Before leaving, however, he warned him, "If suddenly you no longer wish to work here, let me know. Perhaps it is truly time to close this museum." To Wei Yuan, the man was quite strange. However, the artifact that had reacted to the red shoes remained calm. While the protagonist trusted that he was safe, he failed to notice the three ghosts approaching. A malicious Buddha ghost touched Wei Yuan's shoulder, releasing a sinister energy. At that moment, the tiger plaque awakened. The ghost began burning from the inside, and its scream alerted Wei Yuan, who turned around and attacked with the iron plaque. With the strike, he knocked the ghost down. "You filthy thing! Take this!" Happiness filled Wei Yuan's eyes when he realized that he had truly managed to knock down the ghost. He was already becoming addicted to using the plaque. The ghost tried to flee, leaving dirty footprints behind. Wei Yuan quickly chased after it. Cornered, the evil Buddha ghost fell to the ground, begging, "Wait, wait! Child, don't go too far. This place is my territory. My ghost brothers and sisters will not forgive you." On the other side, two other ghosts merely watched the Buddha being beaten. "Wonderful, wonderful. Every time I drink this, I feel as though I'm drinking fine wine or sweet rain. I have never tasted anything like it before." The other agreed, ignoring the evil Buddha. "Naturally, this is cola soda. There was nothing like this in your era." Wei Yuan unleashed a rain of punches while the Buddha begged to be rescued. However, the other two ghosts only focused on the bottle of guarana. Even while trying to avoid eye contact with Wei Yuan, the protagonist walked toward them, his eyes shining with excitement. In the next moment, the two large ghosts and the two smaller ones who were drinking the guarana were beaten up, joining the first as they cried together in a corner of the courtyard. It was the first time something like this had ever happened to them. One of the ghost women cried because the young man had not shown any mercy, even toward the elderly sister. Arrogantly, Wei Yuan sat down in a chair, crossing his legs. Before him, information about those ghosts appeared. Although they were wandering spirits, they had not fed on blood, had not attacked anyone, and furthermore, they were harmless. There was not even any need for extermination. Wei Yuan understood. No wonder dealing with these guys is so easy. It turns out they are not a major threat, just ordinary wandering spirits. One doubt, however, remained as he watched those spirits being sent to the afterlife. But right now, I'm relying on the plaque only to see the outlines of ghosts. If I truly face a formidable evil spirit, what should I do? The tiger plaque revealed the answer. The chief of police who eliminates wild spirits and exterminates ghosts may obtain weapons from the treasures of the Great Han Dynasty based on his achievements. However, the chief of police who has not eliminated wild spirits or ghosts, nor captured criminals, shall have no achievements. The treasure may not be opened. Surprised, Wei Yuan asked what kind of weapons could exterminate evil. The plaque revealed that there were 5 categories of tricks that required no skill. They could open the mind and explore yin and yang. For the first trick, it would be necessary to cut a bundle of grass from abandoned graves and feed it to a yellow ox. Then, one would need to wait until the following day, between 3 and 5 in the morning, when yin energy was at its peak, in order to collect the animal's tears. After that, it would be necessary to gather the ox's gallstone, mint, the herb biancao, baoli, and parts of a yin entity. Everything should be mixed into the ox's tears and applied around the eyes. After 7 days, one would be able to obtain the yin-yang eye for a long period of time. The protagonist rejected the idea since it would be far too expensive. For the second trick, it was said that the night crow could communicate between the worlds of the living and the dead. In the middle of the night, before dawn, it would be necessary to extract the eye of a blue-eyed crow from a dried tree, grind it into powder, and swallow it with warm water. In this way, one would be able to see yin and yang. This time, he refused because it was disgusting. He did not even want to hear the third method. As for the fourth, it was far too dangerous and completely unreliable. For the fifth trick, it would be necessary to focus one's inner vision by submerging a yin entity in water during the morning. Then, a willow leaf should be placed into the water. At noon, when yang energy was at its peak, the leaf would need to be removed and used to rub the area around the eyes. It was said that willow leaves possessed strong yin energy and that their contact would temporarily open the yin-yang eye. The effect would last for the equivalent of the time needed to drink a cup of tea, making it necessary to repeat the process whenever one wished to open the eyes again. This time, Wei Yuan believed it would be feasible to try. Wei Yuan looked at the items on the table and sighed. He truly seemed unlucky for having been mysteriously sent to a place inhabited by ghosts, even though he still had not encountered truly dangerous spirits. To make his life easier, he wished to open the yin-yang eye first. At the very least, escaping would become easier afterward. The young man then concluded that everything was already prepared. The only thing missing now was finding a yin entity. Wei Yuan then looked at the three spirits before him, who became frightened by his malicious gaze. However, the ones who approached the pot containing the liquid were two doll ghosts. They carried sorrowful expressions. The protagonist pushed them away jokingly. "No, I haven't gone insane to the point of submerging you in water yet." Wei Yuan had decided to use the three larger spirits. The protagonist found within the museum the items related to the Buddha spirit and the woman spirit. They were a torn fishing net and an insecticide. Finding a broken sword, he assumed it belonged to a warrior's ghost. Wei Yuan decided to use the sword as he had no other choice. Placing it into the water pot, he only needed to wait until midnight. The protagonist informed them that he was going home and told the ghosts not to cause trouble while he was away. The sky was orange due to the sunset. When Wei Yuan approached his home, he saw a woman lighting incense in a nearby square. The woman was crying over the loss of her daughter. Yuan, you're gone. How is your mother supposed to live after you, Yuan? Wei Yuan asked a man passing by what had happened. The man in a suit revealed that the woman belonged to a family that had lost their daughter. That old woman raised her daughter alone with great difficulty, and just when she was about to finally rest a little, someone caused her daughter to pass away. The man sighed. I don't know who could commit such a heinous act. Immediately, Wei Yuan remembered the dream about the red shoes. Afraid, he planned to pack his things and move to the museum immediately. When Wei Yuan arrived at the museum that night and found the water pot, he celebrated. It worked. The three ghosts approached, curious about what he was doing. Holding the leaf in his hand, he celebrated again. It really worked. Now I can see ghosts easily. The three ghosts talked among themselves. The fisherman assumed Wei Yuan hadn't heard their conversation. The woman agreed. The warrior recalled how the young man had beaten them until they were still aching from the blows. The fisherman Buddha sighed, since the young man still didn't speak to them. Wei Yuan, hearing the conversation, nodded, agreeing that he truly couldn't hear them before. The fisherman Buddha pointed at Wei Yuan, commenting to the other two, "Look, he left a while ago and came back with a girl who also doesn't speak, right?" When he looked back, the protagonist saw the red-dressed ghost. The protagonist was startled by the ghost. He thought he had only had a nightmare that night, but she had become real. A fisherman Buddha ghost approached the woman in a friendly manner. "Hey, new big sister, where did you die?" Hastily Wei Yuan shouted. "Stay away!" The ghost did not have time to escape. His body was pierced by the bride ghost's hair, which grew immensely. The bride ghost's hair spread across the fisherman's body, controlling him and lifting him up with satisfaction. Wei Yuan gritted his teeth. "This is bad. This fisherman ghost is about to be turned into an evil spirit by the red-embroidered shoe ghost. I have to stop this immediately, or there will be two evil spirits in this room." Wei Yuan decided to risk everything. He picked up the broken sword to confront the ghost, who extended her hair to attack him. With his other hand, the protagonist grabbed the tiger plaque. "I'm counting on you! You must be strong in critical moments!" The tiger was summoned, and its roar created a burst of fire to attack the ghost. She retreated, giving Wei Yuan the opportunity to cut the hair binding the fisherman ghost. When he fell to the ground, the other two ghosts rushed to rescue him. Wei Yuan stepped back, wondering what had gone wrong, as his body felt heavy, as if his energy had been drained by the tiger plaque. He also had not been able to fully repel the red shoe ghost. In reality, she was much more powerful than in his dreams. The ghost approached Wei Yuan, staring at him with deep, dark red eyes. The protagonist retreated again upon realizing he had become her new target. With his exhausted body, he did not know how many more times he could use the tiger plaque. Trying a new approach, he shouted at the ghost, "Hey, be a little reasonable. Every complaint has its owner, and every debt has its debtor. There is no grudge between us. Then why are you attacking me specifically? Even if you are a ghost now, in your past life you had a father and a mother. Didn't they teach you good manners?" Wei Yuan's words only made her even more enraged. The protagonist blamed himself for trying to use logic with a ghost. Since she insisted on fighting, he found himself with no alternatives. Raising the tiger plaque once again, he decided, "Today, even if I exhaust all my resources, I'm going to rip out your hair until you're bald." Suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the cloudy sky, striking a lantern, and ricocheting into the ghost attacking Wei Yuan. The protagonist then saw the ghost vanish so quickly that he was left confused. Nearby, the harmless ghosts were talking among themselves. The insecticide ghost asked the others, "Did he just drive away an evil spirit with words?" The fisherman admired the young man, as if his words had become law. The warrior, however, snapped him back to reality with a blow to the head. "Stop talking nonsense." That evil spirit was clearly repelled by the sound of thunder. While they were talking, Wei Yuan felt exhausted, and his body collapsed to the ground, worrying the ghosts. When Wei Yuan woke up, he was in a bed. Everyone was happy, especially the fisherman, who said, "Master, you're awake! You really scared me. Thanks to you, I survived. If something had happened to you, I would have felt guilty for the rest of my ghost life." The protagonist asked if the ghost was okay. Looking at his own body, which was patched together with a fishing net, he assured him that he would recover completely soon. Wei Yuan, holding the tiger plaque in his hand, saw it gathering energy. A message appeared before him. The chief of police must eliminate and expel demons. Preventing wandering spirits and wild ghosts from turning into evil spirits grants 1 achievement point. A grand instruction appeared to teach Wei Yuan how to advance in rank. To become a chief of police, one had to master one of the gates. Since ancient times, there had been complex arts known as ghost exorcism. 12 people would form a formation, their skin painted crimson, carrying hemp whips several meters long, while dancing and chanting the names of gods. Before the Qin dynasty, there was a book called Ji. The book stated, "A contract is based on trust. Ghosts harm people and act recklessly, which is an ill omen for the people. Therefore, inform them with words, summon them, and guide the people toward peace." Wei Yuan looked at his own hand. A talisman was forming with the symbol of ghost exorcism. The talisman taught him that it could not only repel wandering spirits, but also be used for spiritual abilities. Originally, he would need to subdue ghosts to make use of the talisman. However, with 5 ghosts in the museum, 3 large and 2 small, he only needed to convince them to cooperate. Suddenly, he wondered where the ghosts were, as they had disappeared all of a sudden. The protagonist noticed something on the floor. The pair of red shoes was near the bed, on top of a puddle of water. Wei Yuan wondered if it would try to haunt him again. The protagonist listened to the ghost's stories. The fisherman had gone out fishing alone at night, felt dizzy, and fell into the water. As for the woman, a painter, she ended up in that state because she accidentally drank pesticide. The protagonist facepalmed, disappointed upon hearing such pitiful stories. At present, the fisherman and the painter were not ideal help for exorcising wild ghosts. The last hope was the warrior. However, he did not remember how he had died. He did not even remember his own name. The only thing he recalled was having served under Commander Qi against Japanese pirates. The protagonist was impressed. If the ghost had truly served under Commander Qi, then he must have already been centuries old. Eagerly, Wei Yuan asked if he knew swordsmanship. The ghost confirmed that he knew how to use a broadsword, katana, spear, and musket, though only the basic military techniques he had learned. That was already enough for the protagonist, who requested his help. Seeing the young man bow slightly, the warrior quickly lifted him up. "This humble body is at your command, my lord." Wei Yuan immediately used the talisman, placing it on the warrior's face to draw out his power. The warrior ghost began to transform into energy, which flowed into Wei Yuan. He could not describe the sensation, but he could feel that the soul of the Qi army soldier now resided in his hand under his control. The ghost asked mentally, "My lord, what shall we do next?" The protagonist stepped forward and replied, "It is impolite not to return a favor. Since they came looking for us, naturally we must go find her." The fisherman and the painter became excited seeing how impressive Wei Yuan and the warrior ghost together were. Confident, the protagonist joked, "Fill out the paperwork. The police have arrived." Confused, the painter asked if he had gone insane. The protagonist walked toward where the red shoes were. He believed the shoes should have already disappeared. Remembering that courtyard that appeared in his dream, Wei Yuan believed it likely existed in real life. According to various supernatural tales, a place like that would definitely be useful for imprisoning a female ghost. Picking up the shoes, Wei Yuan wondered if he could convince the police to help him find that courtyard. After taking a taxi, the protagonist went to the police station. In front of the officer, he stated that he wanted to report a crime. "A ghost is chasing me." The police officer froze, staring at him in disbelief. Just as Wei Yuan had expected, it would be difficult to convince her. A woman suddenly approached, telling the officer to handle something else, as she would take care of this matter. The man saluted her before leaving. The woman then told Wei Yuan to follow her. While walking, she lit a cigarette. Once inside her office, she introduced herself. "I'm Zhou Yi. from the Special Operations Group. Having lit the cigarette without asking first, Zhou Yi asked if he minded the smell of smoke. With nothing he could do, Wei Yuan simply accepted it. Picking up some documents, Zhou Yi asked to confirm, "So you said you saw a ghost?" Before answering, the protagonist studied her. She had said she was from the Special Operations Group. She wore an earpiece and was not in standard uniform. She looked like a professional sent from the heavens. Wei Yuan told his story. "Yes, it all started as a dream. I dreamed of a small building, then a courtyard with a tree. That female ghost was sitting near a stone well, watching me." In Zhou Yi's hands were Wei Yuan's files. Judging by his record, he had not had any opportunity to come into contact with ghosts recently. According to his travel history, he had also not been to any dangerous areas. It was safe to assume he had not been directly involved with an evil spirit, but he had previously lived near the Fushun residential area, so there was indeed a possibility he had been contaminated by yin energy. That was likely the reason. Combined with the news of what had happened to a young woman in that area, Zhou Yi assumed he had simply had a very realistic nightmare. Of course, the possibility that he was actually being haunted by an evil spirit could not be completely ruled out. However, in general, after an encounter with an evil spirit, a person's mental state tends to become extremely sensitive and depressed. But Wei Yuan was the opposite. Being stared at for so long, the protagonist was already uncomfortable. He felt as if the investigator might strip his clothes off at any moment. Zhou Yi walked around the room, asking whether any other signs had appeared besides the nightmare. Sitting on the table, she warned, "If nothing else has happened, we can use other methods to verify this." The protagonist placed a box on the table, making her curious. Wei Yuan hoped she was truly a professional sent by higher-ups. Otherwise, he would not be the only one having nightmares. When she saw the red shoes, the special agent showed an expression of shock. At that very moment, someone began speaking through her communicator. "Captain, we've arrived at the designated site to seal the bodies attacked by ghosts." "Wait, the red embroidered shoes on the deceased's feet are gone. How is that possible? The talismans we used couldn't seal it. This definitely isn't something an ordinary evil spirit can do." At the morgue, the man shouted, "It's an evil spirit, at least a high-class evil spirit or even above that. Normally, after attacking the living and releasing its resentment, a ghost calms down. This is extremely unusual. What is it trying to do?" Sometime later, two men returned to the police station. Both greeted Wei Yuan. One of them wore a dress shirt, a red tie, and a yellow robe. He was Zhao Yi, a disciple of the Weiming sect. Next to him was a man with glasses and a black shirt, also wearing the same robe. He was a Taoist from the Weiming sect, Xuan Yi. Captain Zhou Yi introduced them to Wei Yuan as members of her team, and also as the ones who had reported the situation to her through the Bluetooth earpiece. Xuan Yi picked up a clipboard, addressing Wei Yuan. "The captain has already given us a general idea of your situation. Could you please describe the courtyard from your dream in more detail?" As the man asked him not to worry, the protagonist revealed that he had already prepared a drawing in advance. When seeing the drawing, the man was shocked. Noticing his partner's expression, Zhao Yi approached curiously. The captain also came closer, asking if any major discovery had been made. Xuan Yi was crying desperately. "His drawing skills are incredible, even better than mine!" The protagonist smiled confidently. It wasn't exactly Wei Yuan who had made the drawing, but the ghost painter. She was a professional after all. Clearing his throat to get attention, Wei Yuan continued. "By the way, the reason you care so much about the scene I saw in my dream is because that place should be useful for subduing the evil spirit, right?" Zhou Yi suddenly pushed him back into the chair, declaring, "You're smart! That's right! The basic principle behind malicious spirits is that they become powerful by using the negative energy of certain places." After the brief explanation, she went back to smoking. Noticing that Wei Yuan was watching her, the officer leaned closer, touching his chin while commenting, "And since your strongest negative emotions resonate with corresponding external environments, these negative emotions keep strengthening them, making them extremely fierce." Wei Yuan blushed slightly due to the closeness and simply listened. After a deep drag, the officer exhaled the smoke, which took the form of evil spirits to help with the explanation. "Unlike ordinary wandering souls, vengeful ghosts and evil spirits usually possess immense spiritual power and have experienced unique events. Facing them directly is definitely not a wise decision." Her instructions were clear. Upon finding the source of the evil spirit's negative emotions, they would have a chance to weaken it and then seize the opportunity to subdue it and destroy it. Evil spirits had once been human as well, but now they were constantly trapped under intense negative emotions that exceeded human understanding. It could be said they lived in a fate worse than death. That was why both Buddhism and Taoism referred to the act of destroying ghosts as a form of liberation. After doing some research, Xuanyi called the captain over. The area where the courtyard was located turned out to be an old theater in the Jiangnan district, a place originally used for opera performances. Apparently, it had once produced several famous opera singers, but something had happened in the past, leading to its closure. Standing up, Zhou Yi made her decision. We're going to Jiangnan. Turning to Wei Yuan, she instructed him to go home and rest. What comes next is not a world that an ordinary person like you should be involved in. Despite her words, Zhou Yi felt that the young man was hiding some kind of secret. As Zhou Yi was leaving the room, Wei Yuan stopped her. He seemed like he wanted to say something, but Xuan Yi interrupted him and handed him a protective talisman. Even though I don't know why the captain seems so interested in you, if you follow us, you'll only become a burden. When he saw the man give him the talisman, the protagonist commented that he had heard his shouting during the call earlier. Didn't you report before that your talismans couldn't suppress that evil spirit? The man fell silent for a moment and, irritated, handed him 2 talismans instead. Even after suffering the blow to his pride, when he realized his drawing skills were inferior, Xuan Yi was now also seeing someone mock his talismans. Saying he was in a hurry, Zhao Yi handed Wei Yuan a document. It was a confidentiality agreement that had to be handed to the other officers later. After that, he could leave on his own. Left behind by the rest of the team, Zhao Yi rushed after the captain and Xuan Yi. It was at that moment that, from the ventilation opening in the ceiling of the room, a mist suddenly appeared. Wei Yuan saw his surroundings being covered in the same way as when he first appeared in that courtyard. The protagonist walked in a straight line, but this time he encountered 2 rows of men kneeling before him. Being dragged once again into an illusory dream, he wondered why there were so many people there this time. Wei Yuan heard a woman's voice. "You have come back once again." Quickly, he looked behind him. The protagonist tried to find the tiger plaque on his clothes, but before he could reach it, the red-dressed female ghost emerged from the mist, startling him with an enormous tongue. She attacked him, piercing her hand into his chest. "Since you are here, you will remain forever." Wei Yuan's scream echoed through the mist. The pain of the attack made him cry out desperately, waking up in the real world. The talismans he had recently obtained had also been destroyed. Wei Yuan realized they had saved him. On Wei Yuan's chest, his shirt was torn. The evil spirit showed how powerful it was by interacting with reality through the dream. The night ghost appeared beside Wei Yuan, asking if he was all right. The protagonist agreed, but revealed that he believed he could not just sit and wait. With ferocity in his eyes, he decided, "Let's go back, change clothes, and prepare ourselves. We're going to Jiangnan." A few days later, in a garden in Jiangnan, a man sitting in front of a well was singing peacefully. The old man was interrupted by Wei Yuan, who was looking for him. "Are you Mr. Jiang?" The protagonist introduced himself, saying he wanted to ask him something. Not having been visited in a long time, the old man was surprised. Confused, Wei Yuan asked if no one had visited him before. The old man answered honestly, "Everyone I once knew has already left this world, and my descendants gradually stopped visiting me." As he listened, Wei Yuan noticed the well. When he looked back at the old man, Wei Yuan also noticed something. The old man had a mark on his face identical to that of a boy he had seen in one of his nightmares. Curious, Mr. Jiang asked what it was that the young man was carrying on his back. The protagonist revealed that he played traditional music, and the large object on his back was a guqin. However, tied to the musical instrument was a sword he had found in the museum and intended to use for self-defense. Thinking about what Wei Yuan had said, Mr. Jiang revealed that some people had visited him the day before, but they had not even entered the garden. The protagonist immediately assumed they were Zhou Yi and her team. What confused him was why they had not entered. While investigating the garden, the protagonist noticed that around the leafless tree, a sinister energy was beginning to emerge. What made it even more puzzling was that the tree formed the traditional character used for the word prison. If a ghost were added to that traditional character, it would form the character for the acacia tree. Everything Wei Yuan managed to observe in a short time made him realize that perhaps Mr. Jiang was no longer alive. Zhou Yi and her team had not simply left. In fact, they thought no one was there and could not enter. Darkly, Wei Yuan asked old Mr. Jiang, "Do you know who the girl was who sang the best opera in all of Jiangnan?" The old man was surprised to learn that the young man knew about her. Hearing that the young man also knew about her, Mr. Jiang let out a soft sigh, lowering his head. "All right, it's good that someone knows. I thought I would have to take these matters to the grave." Recalling the past, he wanted to start from the final years of the Ming dynasty. In the Jiangnan region, there was a theater called the Chunxiao Pavilion. That winter, the owner of Chunxiao Pavilion brought back a little girl. The girl was called Qin Yang. She was beautiful and had a captivating voice. When she first stepped onto the stage at the age of 16, she became famous overnight. Many high-ranking officials and nobles came to hear her sing. Bundles of red silk donated by patrons were tied to the wooden building one by one, vibrant and shining like a crimson cloud. Normally, Qin Yang would have continued singing until she was 20. At that point, she would retire to teach newcomers or marry a good family man and live a respectable life. But how could things be that perfect? In the very same year Qin Yang met her love, Japanese pirates invaded the borders and entered Jiangnan. They demanded the finest wine, the finest food, to hear the best opera, and to be accompanied by the best woman, otherwise they would carry out a massacre. Qin Yang was young, but her integrity was fierce. She would rather die. But that day, more than 30 people from Chunxiao Pavilion knelt outside her door. Even the woman who had taken her in begged bitterly. In the end, Qin Yang gave in, and not a single person in the pavilion was harmed. Later, the brave warriors of the Ming dynasty exterminated those Japanese pirates, and Jiangnan returned to its original state. But then came the gossip and accusations. Everyone knows that forcing someone to sacrifice for you is something difficult to face, so they had to defame her name in order to feel morally superior. Old Mr. Jiang grew furious just thinking about it. Those people, they actually said Qin Yang willingly accompanied the Japanese pirates. Everyone accused Qin Yang of being shameless and lacking integrity. They pressured Qin Yang so much that in the end, she threw herself into a well wearing the wedding dress she had sewn herself. The protagonist listened to the entire story, recognizing that, in the end, there were evil people in every era. Mr. Jiang revealed that on the day Qin Yang threw herself into the well, it was originally early autumn, but a massive, blinding snowstorm suddenly began falling from the sky, as if the heavens themselves felt the injustice done to her. While the old man told the story, it truly began to snow. The protagonist then saw that from the well, a surge of energy shot into the sky, as if Qin Yang herself were present. Wei Yuan looked into the bottom of the well. As expected, he found Qin Yang's remains. Changing the subject, the protagonist asked about the man who was supposed to marry Qin Yang. The old man revealed that the man had joined the army as a student soldier. He was part of the main force that drove away the rampaging Japanese pirates at that time. In those days, he wrote many letters to Qin Yang, but in the end, he perished in battle. If only there had been 3 more days, his discharge letter would have reached Jiangnan and Qin Yang would not have had to die. The protagonist asked if he could read those letters. Old Mr. Jiang searched for them. He believed someone should read them before he too passed away. Mr. Jiang still had 3 letters dedicated to Qin Yang. Feeling deep guilt, he wanted to apologize to her, but at the time he was afraid of death and could not defend her. The protagonist looked at the letters and paintings. That was their past, the final obsession of that vengeful ghost. If burned and turned into talisman water, they would be enough to cause immense damage to the ghost. And if burned directly in front of the vengeful spirit, they could even make its soul collapse instantly. The warrior ghost stepped forward, warning, "My lord, I sense a strong attachment in these letters, expectations for the future and love for the land beneath our feet. Please do not do this." The protagonist reassured him, saying he would not burn the letters. Then, asking Mr. Jiang if they were still in the Chunxiao Pavilion, the protagonist stated that he wanted to visit it. Old Mr. Jiang also wanted to see the pavilion, but there was a problem preventing him. "The sunlight outside is too blinding, and my body can no longer walk. I have tried many times, but I can never leave this courtyard." Wei Yuan understood that Mr. Jiang was suffering from an undifferentiated obsession. His soul would not dissipate, trapped within a small space, something called a terrena. The reason he remained bound could be either the land that imprisoned him or the things in his heart he refused to let go of. The protagonist asked Mr. Jiang to wait for a moment and left. 10 minutes later, Wei Yuan returned with an umbrella. He placed it over Mr. Jiang's head and invited him to go together. The protagonist broke off a piece from the tree, keeping it with him as he guided the old man. Walking with a smile, the old man commented, "It's been a long time since I went out. The sunlight is still a bit strong, but it's fine. I thought I wouldn't be able to walk, but I didn't expect to move so quickly. It seems I stayed in that small place for too long." The protagonist glanced back slightly and saw the old man's ghost bowing in gratitude. The protagonist smiled faintly at him. Far away, Qin Yang's vengeful energy erupted violently in a temple. She was knocking down the talismans used to seal her. Jai Yi had fainted, and Xuan Yi was holding him, relieved that his friend was still alive. Zhou Yi blamed herself for underestimating the opponent's strength and began to treat the mission as a failure. Earlier, the moment they entered that place, They were swallowed by the ghost domain. The talismans and dharma tools they had prepared were useless. There was no way to inflict substantial damage. They could not even use words to disturb her emotions and force her to submit. Even by risking their lives, they only managed to wound the unconscious soul of the bride. Zhou Yi bit the tip of her finger and stained a sword with her essence. Even if it cost her life, she would not let the ghostly creature escape. A magical formation appeared beneath the bride ghost's feet, binding her even as she tried to break free. Zhou Yi stood up, telling Xuan Yi to provide cover. "We cannot allow this creature to escape." Before they could make any move, they saw the creature attack first, targeting Xuan Yi. She struck him heavily, causing him to cough up blood from internal injuries. However, this gave the Special Division captain time to raise her sword and pull out a talisman, bravely chanting as flames rose from the objects. The heavenly Tao is clear, the earthly Tao is calm. Talismanic communications and modern methods alike by the order of the Patriarch advanced toward the Penglai realm. Zhou Yi threw the talisman out of the temple, but it seemed to hit an invisible barrier before returning to her. The captain wondered what was happening. The talisman was supposed to fly out and request reinforcements. It was with great shock that she realized what was going on. The 8 directions had been reversed. In that special environment, communication talismans, as well as modern messaging methods, did not work. Having only herself to rely on, Zhou Yi raised her sword and pointed it at the ghost. However, the bride ghost grabbed the wooden sword the captain was holding. With a light touch, she shattered it. Her fierce gaze, mixed with mockery, frightened the captain. Before Zhou Yi could react, the ghost's hair shot toward her chest like sharp arrows. At the last second, a guqin flew toward the officer, blocking the sharp, ghostly hair. The instrument fell to the ground and was retrieved by Wei Yuan, who introduced himself. "Wei Yuan from Quanzhou, invited by Qingyang, has come to hear a song." Thunder roared in the sky. The ghost's long hair floated in the air, making the area she could attack vastly larger than that of ordinary humans. Hidden behind Wei Yuan, Mr. Jiang was stunned when he saw the ghost. He hurriedly ran toward her. Captain Zhou shouted, "Stop him! It's too dangerous!" The protagonist could tell that Zhou Yi had not realized the old man was merely a spirit bound by obsession. As the old man Jiang approached Qingyang, the protagonist told the officer that this was, in fact, a wish he had always wanted to fulfill. Wei Yuan asked the officer, "When a person suffers their entire life because of a single mistake, and their only desire is to atone for their death, do we really have the right to stop them? Do we have the right to make that choice for them based on our own moral compass? Can people truly empathize with someone else's pain?" At these questions, the officer fell silent. Old Mr. Jiang knelt before the ghost. She moved to attack him while he spoke. "I may be so old that I can barely walk, but there are things I have not forgotten, things I would never dare forget." The ghost's hand pierced the old man's chest once before retracting. Old Jiang slammed his head against the ground while crying out an apology to the ghost. "Qingyang, little 15 kowtows to you. I'm sorry, I failed you." The old man wept desperately in his plea for forgiveness. Letting out a sigh, the protagonist asked the officer to let him find a way to obtain her forgiveness. Surprised, Zhou Yi wondered if this could be the source of the evil spirit's obsession. If she had truly died from misunderstanding and grave injustice, then if the person who harmed her sincerely apologized, it should relieve her extreme resentment. That was a major opportunity. The bride ghost seemed to smile maliciously. Captain Zhou entered a state of alert. The ghost did not seem to have changed. This meant the old man's apology had not altered the ghost's condition. Qingyang's hair attacked Mr. Jiang, who raised his head, smiling while tears still streamed down his face. "It's time to repay what I have owed you for so long." The ghost's hair pierced through the old man, yet he still reached out toward her. In his palm was a small candy he offered her. "Qingyang, this is the candy you gave me back then. I have kept it with me all this time. I owe you so much." In a distant past, the girl in a red dress had handed a candy to a boy even younger than her, moments before she jumped into the well. Unable to stop her, the boy carried a deep sorrow with him. Now, he finally recovered that long-lost moment of happiness, offering his own life to repay the resentment she held against him. The old man's body faded as he said his farewell. "Qingyang, little 15 is going first." Thunder and lightning echoed across the sky, as if marking the farewell. After witnessing everything, the protagonist confirmed. "His obsession has been resolved, and his soul is dispersing, old man. Now it is my turn to say goodbye." Captain Zhou was shocked upon realizing everything had happened because of the old man, not the ghost. However, she could still see that the ghost's resentment had become even greater. Breaking a piece of the ground and kicking it toward the ghost, the protagonist warned that they would have to fight. Qingyang shattered the wooden fragment with her hair. At that moment, the warrior ghost appeared behind Wei Yuan to support him in battle. Holding a sword, the protagonist followed the warrior's commands to face the hair that had become sharp blades. The warrior ghost handed his broken blade to Wei Yuan. With both blades in hand, the protagonist found, with much more fluid movement, allowing him to attack and defend from both the left and the right. The ghost's hair attacking him was repelled as the battle became increasingly intense. Xuan Yi was impressed. That kid really has that kind of strength. His sword techniques are simple, precise, almost unadorned, but every strike is filled with overwhelming intent. Captain Zhou recognized the technique. This is the ancestral battlefield swordsmanship, the kind truly tempered in real combat. She felt pity. This level of swordsmanship is still limited to the realm of mortal martial arts. It is a fighting art specialized for combat against humans. It has no advantage against ghosts and demons. Worried, she believed that in the end Wei Yuan would lose. However, soon they saw Wei Yuan attempt something different and rush toward the ghost. The protagonist tried to close the distance, but that became his mistake. Qin Yang's hair transformed into a sharp spear that struck his chest. The protagonist managed to break free from the attack and retreat, but the sharp hair followed him. Planting the large sword into the ground, he declared bravely, "Fu Pengyi did not abandon you." The attacking hair suddenly stopped. The ghost was surprised upon hearing the name Fu Pengyi. Having successfully drawn her attention, the protagonist explained what had happened. Fu Pengyi of Jiangnan enlisted in the 17th year of Emperor Liewu of the Ming Dynasty to defend our divine land and fell valiantly in battle. The protagonist revealed many of his belongings were delivered to his parents. Taking out several letters, he continued. These letters were some of the ones he sent. He left them along with a pension to his wife, Wan Qinyang. Before the ghost's red shoes lay a letter that was meant to be delivered to the knight's wife. The letter had been written in the midst of war and naval attacks. I have always loved books, paintings, and flowers. I have also always enjoyed fine wine and beautiful women. However, none of these compare to my love for you, and my love for you is only surpassed by my devotion to our country. The brave warrior had gone to fulfill his sense of duty and warned, now that the divine land is in danger, we must give our lives for our nation. If I am fortunate enough to return alive, I will listen to you sing in Jiangnan, and we will never be separated again in this life. He was also already prepared for his tragic end. If my fate is not to return, I will still hear your voice no matter where you sing in the divine land. Our generation must unite with our homeland, and as for you, my promise remains the same. In this life, we will never be separated, only by death. The final words of your husband, Fu Pengyi. The words in the letter caused the ghost to collapse to her knees, shaken by the truth. Lightning crossed the night sky, echoing like Qin Yang's scream of despair. While being supported by Captain Zhou, the protagonist said, in this world, people speak countless words, travel countless miles, and experience countless things. But how many have ever heard an evil spirit cry? Qin Yang's ghost moved toward the exit of the pavilion. Amid the rain, she clutched the letter, her face washed by both the storm and tears. Officer Zhou could not imagine that Wei Yuan would actually dissolve an evil spirit's obsession in such a way. It completely shattered everything she thought she knew. The ghost, while walking, looked back. She knelt before Wei Yuan, unexpectedly pressing her head to the ground in gratitude. The protagonist approached, asking if she had regained her senses. Once a terrifying ghost, Qin Yang recovered part of her beauty, due to the calmness in her heart. She continued to thank and bless the one who had dispelled the doubts within her soul. The protagonist asked if she still had any remaining wishes. Qin Yang was surprised by the question. Her beloved husband had long since passed away, and she herself was no longer among the living. She did not think she had any desires left. In the end, she thought of one and revealed, I want to see what the present era is like. After all, this was the land he fought so bravely to protect. The sky brightened once again. The storm dissipated, and they exited the ghostly illusion. At that moment, Xuan Yi rushed out of the pavilion, shouting in refusal. He pointed his sword at the ghost, declaring, Don't even think about it! We don't even know if you are still harmless! Before Qin Yang could feel threatened, the protagonist snatched the sword from Xuan Yi's hand and struck him with his own weapon. Spinning the sword in his hand, he hit Xuan Yi with the metal hilt. Kneeling down, the man admitted that the young man's swordsmanship was far superior to his own. Hurriedly, he tried to warn him, You have no idea how unstable an evil spirit can be. If this ghost goes berserk outside, the consequences will be unimaginable. The protagonist ignored him, walking toward Qin Yang while taking back his umbrella. He said he had been wrong about who she was and would pay for it. Placing the umbrella over Qin Yang's head, He extended his hand to help her up. I will accompany you on one last walk through Jiangnan. Let's go. Walking through a village with stone roads, Qin looked around in amazement. She had not expected this place, which still looked traditional, to remain the same as before. Qin still remembered running through those streets as a child. The stained, weathered walls carried a deep history. At breakfast time, people from nearby villages came to sell vegetables on both sides of the street. Greens, cabbages, everything looked so fresh. In winter, there were even frozen persimmons. Old Chen's soy sauce shop was on that street, and further ahead there was a small noodle stall. 1 man, 3 tables. 2 bowls of noodles with a spoonful of soy sauce were considered incredible in those times. Qin still remembered, when I was young, I used to imagine Fu Pengyi and I growing old together, walking hand in hand down this same street, watching people buy groceries and seeing children running around. Thinking about it now, I really shouldn't have dreamed so much. Passing by a large shop, she revealed that it was her favorite place to buy lipstick. I used to think that no matter how the world changed, there would always be young women and they would always need to paint their eyebrows and lips. This shop could never close. Qin said that her beloved Fu Pengyi once told her that the world would change in ways no one could predict. Now she believed he had been right. Thinking that she might see the new Jiangnan for him, all she saw now were scenes of the past. Qin felt she must look foolish to the young master. Just as many things had been left behind, Qin thought that the songs she once heard were no longer the same, and she began to cry. The protagonist corrected her. They are still being heard. Opera is still here. Traditional singing styles are actually becoming popular among the younger generation. In this ancestral land, many things are new, but the old things have not been forgotten. They are still growing, merging with the new. This divine land has always had the grace to embrace everything, and those who deserve to be remembered, we will never forget them. In such a large city, all styles of music could be heard, and traditional ones still persisted in certain places, while memorials had been erected for those of the past. Arriving at one of those places, a stone tower, the protagonist showed the opera singer, "Miss Wan, look! The names of those from Jiangnan who gave their lives for the country are all written here, one by one." The protagonist explained that he had always been afraid of ghosts, and many people avoided cemeteries, especially at night. But a martyr's cemetery was different. Even children knew those heroes would protect them. That was why the people of the future owed them complete gratitude, thanking them, and everyone from the past. Qin touched the memorial stone. Among all the names, she found Fu Pengyi's. While she stood there, the protagonist asked if she wanted to go somewhere else. With tears washing her face, Qin smiled and said she was already satisfied. The tiger talisman in Wei Yuan's pocket began to glow. 2 large holographic windows appeared before him. Evil spirit dispelled. Retainer director obtained 7 merits. Conversion initiated. Basic retainer director unlocked. Spiritual infusion ability. Conversion initiated. Retainer dossier director. Supernatural anomaly. King of Gods, unlocked. The protagonist set aside the unlocking of these abilities. At the end of the memorial street, Xuanyi and Zhou Yi watched him. Xuanyi wanted to go over, but Zhou Yi stopped him. Qin ghost noticed their presence, but ignored them. She asked the young Master Wei if he still had anything to say to her, since she had attacked him earlier. Opening the Guqin case and revealing a sword, the protagonist asked if she had caused the deaths of innocent people. Thunder roared in the sky, as if asking the same question. The protagonist used the spiritual infusion ability, the power to infuse spiritual energy into objects to imitate the properties of ghosts and monsters. Qin past, her former despair, the malice of human hearts, your reasons for becoming a vengeful spirit and the agonizing laments of that mother who lost everything, Wei Yuan could feel all of it vividly. But whether as a tiger colonel lying in ambush or a wandering swordsman, sometimes it is simply impossible to change the past. Perhaps that is the reality of life. The protagonist warned that they only had one choice. Showing the tiger plaque, he declared, "It shall be a life for a life." Faced with the warning, Qin refused to stand still, waiting to be dissipated. With a powerful roar, she released a ghostly energy. Its reverberation overflowed throughout the memorial. Even from a distance, Xuanyi was thrown against a tree, and Zhou Yi had to hide behind it for protection. The protagonist planted his sword into the ground, showing the director's plaque. The released energy from the ghost caused her to evolve. A third eye appeared on her forehead, while her voice became deeper. Bravely, she challenged him to see who would remain standing. Qin ghost leapt onto the protagonist before he could strike with his sword. She focused on his sword, gripping it. What the ghost bride did next surprised him. She pointed Wei Yuan's sword at herself, throwing herself onto it. The protagonist was shocked by her actions. Qin evil energy dissipated as she smiled. "You are kind, young master. and you accompanied Qingyang on this journey. If I had not done this, you might not have been able to force yourself to attack me." The protagonist pulled the sword back, still in shock. A golden energy covered Qingyang, beginning her transition into the spiritual realm. She remembered that, at the moment Wei Yuan found her, he had said he wanted to hear her sing. "Are you still in the mood for that now? I would like to sing once more." The protagonist nodded and looked at the chin lying on the ground. He said he would play it while accompanying her song. Qingyang joined her hands together, thanking him. In the midst of the night, the opera singer's voice echoed through the memorial, singing a song of loneliness. When the song ended, the protagonist commented, "Little 17. No, old Master Jiang has always carried guilt in his heart." Qingyang assured him that the past was already behind them, and there was no need for him to bring it up again. Moreover, she did not wish to forgive them. The protagonist did not judge her. Turning into light scattered by the wind, Qingyang said her farewell. "Young master, this is where we part ways." All that remained were the red shoes and the letters. Approaching with Xuan Yi, Zhou Yi asked where Wan Qingyang was. The protagonist revealed that her soul had been shattered and she had returned to the heavens. When he approached, what Xuan Yi noticed was that Wei Yuan was sitting in midair playing the qin. What they did not know was that Wei Yuan was actually seated upon the fisherman's spirit, while the painter and the warrior helped hold up the qin for him. The protagonist smiled proudly, while the ghosts already looked exhausted. Clearing his throat, the protagonist stood up, saying it was good that the two of them had awakened. Still shocked, the pair asked who Wei Yuan really was. The protagonist placed the qin on his back and replied, "I am just an ordinary person who works at a folk museum. If you have time, come visit us." The protagonist walked away. Along the way, he passed a street cut by a river. Traditional decorations were scattered across the area, and on a wooden boat, a guide showed the scenery. "Everyone, please look here. This is the best preserved ancient street in Jiangnan today. There used to be many stalls here. Look here, this is Jixiang Street. In the past, it was a famous and large purple fabric shop in Jiangnan. All women wished they could wear the fine purple fabric from here. And in front of us stands Chunqiao Pavilion, also known as Chunqiao Theater, one of the two main theaters of Jiangnan during the Ming Dynasty." The protagonist, passing by, heard the man speaking about the pavilion. "It will officially open to the public very soon. When the time comes, you will be able to come in for tea, and our theater troupes will perform operas and sing on stage, allowing everyone to experience the ancient atmosphere of the Ming Dynasty." The protagonist wondered how many romantic stories of the past, amid the misty rain and the pavilions of Jiangnan, still remained, and who would be left to remember them. The protagonist let out a deep sigh, because perhaps it would have been better if the stories of the past were forgotten. In the forest behind the city, heavy rain was accompanied by thunder. Among the trees there was a small wooden house. Sitting in a corner, hugging a backpack, was a man named Fang Cheng, 30 years old, single, a mountaineer. Originally, he was not alone. There were 7 people climbing, and no one expected them to be caught in a heavy downpour, so they had to take shelter in the ranger's cabin. Although the ranger was not there, fortunately his daughter was. Needing to go to the bathroom in the woods, the man left the wooden house, running to deal with it quickly. Relieving himself by a tree, he smiled in relief. He looked around and realized it had become night. It was already late, but the light in the ranger's cabin was still on. The ranger's daughter might not have gone to sleep yet. Curious, he went to the cabin window and saw the young woman putting on makeup in front of a mirror. The man blushed slightly as he found the ranger's daughter incredibly beautiful. The woman exposed her shoulders and looked toward the window. "See what a lovely piece of skin." In the next moment, the cabin light turned off, and in the mirror, the woman's reflection became that of a skeleton. A few days later, the protagonist stored the red shoes in the museum. After Wan Qinyang's violent energy dissipated, he obtained a divine ability: spiritual infusion. As this generation was destined to combat supernatural anomalies, he felt as if he had inherited a certain burden. Wei Yuan's blood could merge with the effects of taming ghosts, granting him a certain degree of suppression over supernatural anomalies. Using flames, the protagonist applied a basic ceiling layer. Taking advantage of a sunny day, the protagonist put on headphones. Thanks to modern technology, he recorded Wan Qinyang's final song and uploaded it online. The song received countless praises from netizens. Listening to the song again, he praised the best courtesan of Jiangnan. Suddenly, the protagonist saw a woman appearing at the museum gate. The woman whispered to him, "Young man, do you live here?" The protagonist nodded and asked if the lady needed any help. The woman warned that the house he was living in was not clean and advised him not to stay there. The protagonist thanked her for the advice, but reminded her that they lived in modern society, where people trusted science. Where in the world would there be ghosts or monsters here? Falsely ignoring her warning, the protagonist assured her he was not afraid of ghosts thanks to his yang energy. The woman sighed. Young people these days simply refuse to listen. Sooner or later, you will learn the hard way. The moment the woman left, the tiger plaque in Wei Yuan's pocket glowed. Sitting in the chair, the protagonist complained about not even being able to get a break. The roar of a sports motorcycle echoed through the street, stopping in front of the museum. The rider got off the bike and walked toward Wei Yuan. Curator Wei. The protagonist saw Officer Zhou with her hair loose, swaying in the wind, wearing a leather jacket, very different from her usual office police style. Approaching, he explained that he was not a curator. Zhou Yi didn't care. She was there to thank him. Remembering that the sword he used last time had been damaged, she wanted to gift him another one as a sign of gratitude. Drawing the sword with ancient inscriptions, the protagonist was stunned. The police officer explained that it had been forged last year by the Longquan lineage. Its finish and center of gravity rivaled the service weapons of ancient generals. It was extremely rare on the market. The Special Operations Group possessed one of them, and Zhou Yi was presenting it to him as a way of thanking him for saving her life. The protagonist frowned, believing she had not come there for that reason alone. Zhou Yi handed him a letter. "I hope you will join us." Wei Yuan asked the reason for the invitation. She showed awareness that he was not an ordinary person. Getting straight to the point, she explained, more than a century ago, the spiritual energy that had remained dormant for nearly a millennium began a spiritual revival. At first, Taoist and Buddhist factions discovered that their cultivation methods were starting to work. The spells revered by their sects gained supernatural power. At that time, many factions wished to align themselves with the Ming dynasty. She explained that, along with the possibility of cultivation, other anomalies also began to appear. The police officer was more specific. Every supernatural incident from the past was recorded. People at that time had very little understanding of demons and ghosts. Initially, this caused panic and mass casualties. To minimize the impact on ordinary citizens' lives, a branch of the Brocade Guard was tasked with suppressing these monsters. Later, the Ghost and God Rebellion of Sakura Island broke out. For various reasons, the Ming dynasty was reformed and transformed into the Republic of Hua. Consequently, the Brocade Guard was dissolved. Only that specific branch remained, becoming the predecessor of the Special Operations Group. Zhou Yi told Wei Yuan that at first they were still able to suppress bizarre incidents. But now the pace of the spiritual revival had suddenly accelerated, and beings of darkness were appearing in the world much more frequently. Extending her hand, she repeated the request, "Join us to hunt and defeat these beings." The protagonist did not expect to be invited to become one of the guards. Captain Zhou Yi revealed that her lineage recruited Taoist and Buddhist disciples to monitor the world and eradicate evil beings. During the Ming dynasty, they were the Brocade Guards. In the Song dynasty, the Imperial City Department. In the Great Tang dynasty, the Buliangren. And in the Sui dynasty, the Retainers Department. Tracing an even more distant past, back 2,000 years, starting with the Great Tiger Colonel of Han, wherever supernatural anomalies occurred, people like them existed. The police officer, however, stated that they obviously did not possess the absolute authority the Brocade Guards once had. The protagonist thanked the captain for the trip she made to deliver the gift, but said he was just a guy who took care of a museum. As for the invitation, he refused. Zhou Yi did not expect that answer. As she fell silent, the red light of a recording camera flickered without Wei Yuan noticing. In a large building stood the high administration of the Special Operations Group. In a room, an old man with a white beard and hair tied in a bun raged, "We were rejected? How could a cultivator refuse an invitation from the Special Operations Group?" The elder of the Celestial Master Mansion cursed, "Little Zhou, eliminate that bastard for me." In direct communication with the elder, Zhou Yi prepared to draw her sword and replied to Wei Yuan, "Since that is your decision, I suppose I have no choice."